God here, and welcome to the Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 9 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And Brad, we are officially almost halfway through this year's National Football League season. For those of you that are new to the show, we pick the top 10 games worth actually spending some money on every week. We are in week 2 or season number 2 of the Gods of Odds. Brad, where were you just extraordinarily disappointed last week?
Well, I mean, we both went 5-5 last week, so it was kind of a, kiss your sister sort of weekend for both of us. But, it was just a wild week. I mean, it's been a wild week with the NFL. You mentioned it's a midway point. There's a lot of teams, I think, that would wish it was the end right now. The Henry Ruggs situation in Las Vegas was, just some of the worst news I'd ever heard. And then, Aaron Rodgers with COVID and Saquon Barkley with COVID and, Michael Thomas in New Orleans now out for the season, and OBJ in Cleveland now. They just kind of said, don't come back. And that's kind of where it's been left right now. So there's a lot of turmoil in the NFL right now. And, we just can only hope things settle down. It makes it tough to pick games because you really don't know who's going to play. And there's a lot of interesting ones on the docket right now for this week.
And Adrian Peterson back in the National Football League with the Tennessee Titans with, the Derrick Henry injury. I will say this, like last week was the week I was most disappointed about with my top 10 picks, because at one point during the week, Brad, or during the weekend, I felt like I was on the verge of going 8-10. I was on the verge of coming on Gods of Odds this week, bragging about how I went 8-10.
8-10 or 8-2?
Or sorry, yeah, 8-4-2. I just was on the verge. I wanted to text you all weekend and say this is going to happen. This is going to be the best week I've had of the season, and it just kept getting. I went from 8 wins to 7 wins to 6 wins to feeling like I was guaranteed I was going to have 6 wins. And then the New York Football Giants, stun us all, sort of. I guess we shouldn't be stunned at all anymore when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs.
No, the Chiefs they're like a different team. I watch that team now, and they don't look anything like a championship caliber football team. They managed to win the game, but it was anything but a Picasso, I think. Patrick Mahomes is missing simple passes now. It's not like he's missing the hard ones. He's missing simple passes. You can see it on the reactions of some of the guys around him, Travis Kelce in particular. Every time they show a picture of him, Kelce's face, it's written all over it. It's like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
He's throwing interceptions at a rapid rate, and the defense can't stop anybody. And I don't know if it's a matter of a function that, he kind of feels like he has to score every time he's on the field because the defense is so bad, or if his confidence is shaken. But clearly Patrick Mahomes not the same guy that we've, seen over the last 3-4 years.
I would say it's classic Sam Darnold pressing. He's trying. It's how Sam Darnold tries to do things he's not capable of doing. In Patrick Mahomes' case, he used to be capable of doing those things, but he he doesn't realize anymore that he's struggling. If you really get down to the tape, it's a mechanics issue with Patrick Mahomes. Plus, he drops back to pass, and he has that. Remember the old Chrissy Everett back in the day when he played for the Los Angeles Rams, and he just had happy feet and couldn't stay in the pocket. It sort of what's happening with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I think they'll figure it out. I'm hopeful because Patrick Mahomes is good for the National Football League. Having a fun Kansas City Chiefs team is a good thing for the National Football League. And then one last thing I wanted to mention before we dive into our picks is this whole Aaron Rodgers thing. Aaron Rodgers getting COVID is one thing. And I hope he fully recovers. But sort of lying about having the vaccine, which is what happened. And then as reports came out, he went out and he had his own version of anti-COVID medicine given to him, not approved by anybody at all. So, I don't want to get into a political debate here about, whether or not you should or shouldn't get the vaccine. I think it's up to everybody and it's their choice. But you're on a National Football League team. You're supposed to be the leader of that team. You come out and say that you're fully vaccinated, and it turns out you're not. Like, what world is Aaron Rodgers winning in? Like, when he applied to college, did he write in his own SAT scores of what he thought he was going to get on the SATs? It's just ridiculous.
Well, what's amazing to me is that there's not a procedure in place to check and see whether or not they actually got the vaccine. I mean, how much money is this league worth?
Yeah.
Do they not have some sort of checking to see if these things are real or not? Or are they just taking a guy's word of mouth? I mean, it just seems like a strange situation to me. And, the Packers, without Aaron Rodgers on the field this weekend, they may pay a price and lose, and that could cost them a home field advantage in the playoffs. So,
yeah.
Sometimes people have to learn the hard way.
I agree. All right, Mr. Hoysev, lead us into the top 10 games worth spending some money on.
Well, we talked a little bit about the Henry Ruggs situation, so we might as well jump right into the Raiders at the Giants. The Raiders are a 3-point favorite in that matchup. And the Giants kind of seem to keep things close. But I was really optimistic about Henry Ruggs and the development that he had made during the offseason, because I thought he looked like a pretty good player. And I'm just not sure how this Raiders team mentally can get up for this game and, go on the road across the country and play a football game. I think focus is a real problem here. Both teams need a win. Neither team is playing particularly good football right now. But if I'm the Giants and you're giving me 3 points, I'm going to take that. So I'm going to take New York at home, playing in front of their crowd against the Raiders team that I think has got a lot of heavy hearts and a lot of concerns here, sitting here on a Thursday.
Yeah, it's like every 2 or 3 weeks something happens with this Raider football team. I will point out that I think that this is a resilient Raider football team this year. Almost a team of sort of like, we're going to make the playoff destiny. And I looked at this game, and then Brad and I think are going to disagree. Probably the most we've disagreed all season long in games. And I just think that this is a Raider team that's going to go on the road. They're going to go on the road, obviously without Henry Ruggs, and I just see them opening the offense up a lot. And quite frankly, the New York Giants offense is the perfect offense for this Raider defense to play right now, because it is as predictable as the Minnesota Vikings. It's even more predictable than the Minnesota Vikings offense, and we know how bad that is from a predictability standpoint. So I think this is a Raider victory. I'm comfortable giving up some points, and I'm definitely sticking with him. By the way, Brad, did you know that the car accident that Henry Ruggs got in, you had mentioned this yesterday and you weren't sure, and I checked on it and you were right, 156 miles an hour. You can, and what was, what you had said about it is like, and it was in like a neighborhood street, and it's like, like for those of you that have ever driven 150 miles an hour, I mean, like, you have to, that's just crazy. You should only be driving that fast on a track.
Yeah, no, the whole thing is bizarre beyond belief. I was never a car guy growing up, Dave. I never got that gene from my parents. I never had a desire to drive 156 miles an hour. I did a lot of stupid things, don't get me wrong, but I never got behind the wheel driving 156 miles an hour and did something like that. And it's really sad. You hear Derek Carr come out and say that, I wish he would have just called me. I'd have picked him up. I don't care what time it is. I'd have picked him up. And now, unfortunately, Henry Ruggs is going to have a lot of time, I think, to think about things.
Yeah, just an absolutely horrific story. All right. Moving on to what I think is a really no longer interesting football game at all, which is the Tennessee Titans at the Los Angeles Rams. You got to give up 7.5 points. You and I we fell in love with Deshaun Jackson all over again. And he broke our heart all over again as he's no longer a member of this Rams team, as they granted him his wish, and he flat out was released by the Rams. Look, the Rams made some strong moves at the trading deadline. Obviously, the biggest move in picking up Von Miller, who, if he can stay healthy, will have a dramatic impact on one of the best defenses in the National Football League already. I think maybe if we were a couple weeks past Derrick Henry being out, I would feel a little bit differently about this game. But right now, it's going to take a couple weeks for this Tennessee Titans to figure out what life looks like after Derrick Henry. Assuming Matt Stafford doesn't revert back to his Detroit Lions days, this should be an easy bet. I know we were all biting our nails last week during that Rams Texans game because they fell asleep in the second half on the defensive side of the ball and only covered by 2 points. But definitely going with the Rams this week.
Well, we're going to agree on this one. That was one thing I didn't hit upon, the bizarre things and terrible things that happened this week, was Derrick Henry getting hurt, and now they're saying he could be out for the season. They're saying 8 to 10 weeks, and I think what that means is if Tennessee's not in the playoff hunt, Derrick Henry's probably not coming back for the rest of the season. But they're a good football team. They're a better football team, obviously, with Henry. But my concern with Tennessee here is that the entire offense is designed for Derrick. I mean, it's a Derrick Henry offense, and everything plays off of Derrick Henry. They expect to load the box with defense because everybody needs to stop Derrick Henry. You don't want to get beat by him, and then they beat you over the top with, Julio Jones or A.J. Brown. That's just not there anymore now, and they, in my opinion, made just a crazy move trying to pick up Adrian Peterson. There's a reason Adrian Peterson wasn't on a roster, because he's not the same player he was. And every year some team seems to go out there and think that he's going to provide the answer. But there was a lot of fantasy football teams out there this week, Dave, that saw their dreams go up in smoke with Derrick Henry going down. I think along with that, I think Tennessee's dreams went up in smoke. And I'm there with you. It's 7.5 point favorite of the Rams at home. And I'm going to take the Rams. I'm going to give that 7.5. I think they're a good football team. Defense is obviously really talented. Julio Jones has been dinged up. Not sure if he's going to play. A.J. Brown had a nice week last week. First really good week he's had in quite a while. But now, unfortunately, there's going to have to be a lot more Ryan Tannehill and a lot less Derrick Henry. And I don't think that's a good thing for the Tennessee Titans. And I'm going to take the Rams.
Yeah. A great Cheech and Chung movie was referenced there a couple of times, Up in Smoke. This is a story of maybe one of the most impactful players in the National Football League going out. And we'll have like the biggest dramatic impact on a football team. Like it's Derrick Henry, and there's a couple quarterbacks. And if you take Tom Brady away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what do you have? And so it's sort of the same thing with Derrick Henry. He's the one running back in the National Football League that if you take him away, there is no replacing him. That division they're in is just so bad that they could still back into the playoffs as a division winner. The move to get Adrian Peterson was, he was the first person to answer his phone call. That has to be what it was. There's barely anybody else left on the heap. And when you think about the style of runner that Derrick Henry is, Adrian Peterson from 10 years ago would have matched that. But like the wheels have come off that school bus, Brad, a long time ago, man. So I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, I think Jeremy McNichol is going to be the guy there that's going to get the bulk of the carries or the bulk of the balls in Tennessee. So anyways, Dave, before we went on, I showed you I was holding a bowl of popcorn, and my next game is I got a lot of Bills on my team, Dave. And the Bills are playing at the Jaguars, and so I'm just going to be eating popcorn all afternoon watching that game because Buffalo is a 14-point favorite. Bet the house, people. It's the Bills minus 14 playing at the Jags, who are an awful football team. I'm going to take the Bills and get to the 14.
God, I think you're gonna I'll bring some popcorn back from the movie theaters because I will be seeing the Eternals this weekend, Marvel's Eternals. I've been told a ticket was purchased for me by my wife. And you're going. So I will go. That being said, I looked at this game and the only
Dave, that's almost grounds for divorce. I mean, the NFL's on Sunday, right?
Oh yeah. Well, movie Saturday. And it doesn't conflict with the number 20 Golden Gophers of Minnesota's college football game. Anyways, so I sort of look at this and what can you say about this Jaguar team that we haven't already said? The biggest concern is I don't think Buffalo's offense has looked particularly great the last couple weeks. Am I concerned about giving up 14 points? Yeah, a little bit. Am I going to bet against Brad Hoysef and Las Vegas on this? No. I will agree with you that 3 out of 4 times the Bills are going to win this game by more than 14 points. I'm definitely going with the Bills in this one as well.
They're just better on both sides of the ball. Trevor Lawrence doesn't look ready to play in the NFL. He's got no talent around him. Yeah. Defensively, they're not very good. The Bills are one of the best teams on both sides of the ball. And, Jacksonville's playing at home, but I don't think that really means a whole lot. There's not a lot of home field advantage down in Jacksonville when the Jaguars are playing. So the Bills have got fans everywhere. They got a lot of those snowbirds have gone down from the north, and they're now living down in Florida in the Jacksonville area. So Buffalo, I think they're ready to go on a roll here and go on a winning streak. I think the Jaguars are just a small cog in the way.
So coming up a little bit later in the show, I will have the worst possible game you could bet on so far through 9 weeks of this National Football League season. It involves 2 teams that have a grand total of 2 wins amongst them. It's a teaser, if you will, Brad. A teaser for later. My next game is going to be the Broncos, your favorite quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, against the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys at home, favored by 10. No word yet if Dak Prescott's going to play or not. I'm not sure it really matters if he does or if he doesn't play against this Denver Bronco defense, which, as I must remind you, Brad, no longer has Von Miller on it. This Bronco team is the worst 4-4 football team I've seen in years. I expect Dallas to not overlook this Bronco team. I'm not even going to get into what happened against the Vikings, because I think people who are really in the know realize Minnesota lost that game. Dallas didn't necessarily win that game. And it was lost by the coaching staff in Minnesota. That's a different story for a different day. I just believe it's too much talent across the board. And I think this offense is going to destroy the Broncos in 10 points. While I always get concerned when I go into double digits, I've seen enough of this Bronco offense to be very confident about my pick and taking down. I can't believe what you're about to say.
Yeah, we're about to go on a run of disagreements here. But until I see that Dak Prescott is playing in that football game, 10 points is a hellacious amount of points. That kid at quarterback is just not, he's not seasoned. He's not a great young player. I mean, if you have Dak Prescott, then yeah, I can see a 10-point line. That would make more sense. But there's no guarantees Prescott's going to play. He hasn't practiced. And I just feel like Denver is kind of in more of a pressure-packed situation where they've got to go down there and look good and double digits. I'm not going to. I don't even know what the guy's last name is. It's Cooper something or another. I don't know what his last name is, but Denver needs to have a good performance. They really need a win. I don't know that they'll get it at Dallas, but I'll take the 10 points. I'll take the Broncos.
Good old Cooper Rush. It's like a made up name for a Friday Night Lights character, Cooper Rush. It's a great name. For a football player. Just even with Cooper Rush starting at quarterback, so much talent. They're not going to get they'll probably get more pressure than the Vikings got, because basically anybody can get more pressure against a quarterback than the Vikings did last week. Games in Dallas. Denver doesn't travel well. Teddy is, he's reached his peak a couple years ago. Just not seeing it. I mean, there's going to be Denver Bronco turnovers with or without Dak Prescott playing. Furthermore, I think Dak Prescott's healthy and ready to go. I think it's just the regime there just trying to decide if they really need him or if they don't. I'm confident with or without Dak in this particular game.
You'll get no disagreement with me on Teddy Bridgewater. I think I sent you some text messages over the weekend that he's like the ultimate check down Charlie. The guy, whenever you need 10 yards, he throws a pass that's going to get you 7. And I just don't understand that philosophy. But he does have a high passing percentage as a result of that every year. And there's a lot of quarterbacks like that in the league that they kind of beef up their numbers by throwing underneath. But it doesn't move the chains. And at some point, Denver's got to find the answer there. They've just been rifling through quarterbacks one after another for the last, it seems like, since ever, Peyton Manning was there, and that was nearly a decade ago. So, but I'm going to go next. One of our favorite teams, the Chargers, are playing at the Eagles. I know Dave is a little confused on this one. The Chargers are a 1.5-point favorite on the road in Philadelphia. I just like the way the Chargers traditionally play on the East Coast. They usually go there and have a solid performance, and everybody's surprised by it. And I don't think they should be surprised by it anymore. The Chargers are a good football team with a lot of talent. They got way too many ways that they can beat you, and the Eagles just don't have a lot of offense. I'm going to take the Chargers. I'm going to give the 1.5.
Admittedly, on the fence. I was on the fence last week with the Eagles as well. Ended up going with the Eagles. I feel like I've earned an extra a free weekend of Eagles by taking the Eagles last weekend. That might be historically correct what you said about the Chargers going to the East Coast and playing well. That certainly did not happen against the Baltimore Ravens earlier in the year. Last time I checked, Philly and Baltimore are in the same neighborhood of the East Coast. But I was like, this is such a this is the problem I have with this week is a lot of these games are, quite frankly, enigma games. When the season started, would you have predicted, Brad, that the Chargers at this point of the season would only be 1.5 favorite going into Philadelphia?
Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many unknowns at the beginning of the season. I just like their talent. I think they got a lot of talent. They seem to be fairly healthy at this point, and I don't like the Eagles' talent. The one guy I do like, Miles Sanders, is out. Jalen Hurts he's a guy that he gives you a little bit in the running game, but he's pretty inconsistent throwing the football. They've never really, had a ton of weapons there in Philadelphia over the last 5-6 years. So I probably wouldn't have been opposed to seeing the Chargers being a 1.5 point favorite. It's not like Philadelphia is some sort of great football team. And, the Chargers are a talented young team that finally got rid of a disastrous coaching staff a year ago. And I think they're on their way forward. And I think that the Eagles are just another block in the road that makes the Chargers continue to go forward.
Yeah. I think, like, looking at this, when the season started, I would have said, hey, look, I think the Chargers, in week 9 will be favored by, 4 or 5 points. And the fact that it's only 1.5 points, and the game plan that Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots put together against the Chargers was pretty impressive. To me, this is a football team that is sort of lost in the forest right now, and that's why the odds on this thing are so almost to pick 'em levels. Is something just tells me to fly, Eagle, fly. So I'm going to go back-to-back weeks. I'm going to go ahead and take the Eagles. This is more a reflection on me thinking that this Charger team, there's just something wrong there with the Charger offense. I'll probably regret this come Sunday, and I'm sure I'll get a text about it. But I'm just not I'm not sold that they figured out what the problem is yet.
All right, Dave. I just keep warning you. I keep warning you, and you went opposite of me a lot of times this week. So hey, there's room for movement there.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to come out a victor this week. I think we've tied like 2 or 3 weeks in a row or something, and at least a couple weeks in a row. And so there's really been no movement in our overall rate. Oh, by the way, did we ever make a bet on the Mixon thing? We were going to make a bet on the whether or not Mixon would do something or another.
Yeah, I think you had Joe Mixon running for 1,500 yards in the season, and I think I said I thought you were not well in that discussion. We'll have to go back and take a look at that and watch the tape and come up with that official bet for next week.
Hey, Joe Mixon might end up leading the NFL in rushing this year now that Derrick Henry's gone.
Oh man, it's just painful. I saw him play, and I am impressed. I was heck of
impressed. A player, Dave. Heck of a player.
All right. I've got the Minnesota Vikings at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens are giving up 5.5 points in this game. This is like really a hard game for me from a personal note. So I'll try to keep the heart out of my analysis here. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier as well, where it wasn't to me as if Cooper Rush was the greatest young quarterback I've ever seen in the National Football League. It wasn't as if I thought Dallas's game plan was so much further superior than what the Vikings put together. it was the epitome of a Minnesota Viking and this Minnesota Viking season where you were let down by, quite frankly, the most dull and predictable offense in the National Football League. Hey, Brad, someday you're going to retire. Are you going to just immediately hand your gig over to your son? I'm just saying, just boring offense. And it's sad because there's so much talent on with that wide receiver core. They have, probably the best running back 1-2 punch in the National Football League outside of Dallas's to begin with. And they couldn't get anything going at all. And then their quarterback drops back to pass and he overthrows a tight end by 7 yards on a 5-yard out route. To say that I could have any confidence of this Viking team, and I'm taking the heart out of it. This is just fact, Brad. To say that I could have any confidence in that team going into Baltimore against the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, who's going to run all over that defense. Anthony Barr missed a couple days of practice early in the week. Will or will he not play? Who knows? I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one.
Yeah, no heart. No heart in that one at all. I mean, you kill me. You slay me. Well,
you're thinking about coming the Ravens' way, aren't you?
No, I'm not going the Ravens' way. You're out of your mind. Look, first of all, I've been saying since the beginning of the year, Kirk Cousins is one of the worst 2-minute quarterbacks in the league. We saw that on display again last week. What was that at the end of the first half? That was a disaster. And then, of course, they didn't go anywhere at the end in the fourth quarter. They didn't have a lot of time left on the clock, in fairness. But the reason I like the Vikings in this one, Dave, is no matter who wins or loses, they always seem to keep it close. And now their backs are up against the wall. There's been a lot of heat on Zimmer. There's been a lot of heat on the offensive game plan. And that's usually when the Vikings respond and put out a decent game. And the thing I don't really like their defense. I think they're pretty bad, but with the way Jackson plays and runs, they're kind of an East-West team. And every once in a while they try to take a shot downfield. And I really think that that's the one strength the Vikings have on defense is they're kind of an East-West defense. They're fairly quick from side to side. It's when you run it right at them that the Vikings aren't very good. And Latavius Murray hasn't practiced yet for that team. And so I think they've lost a lot of their power element that they have, the Ravens. And I just think 5.5 is a lot of points. I think the Vikings will keep that close. I'm not sure they win. I think the Ravens probably win the game, but 5.5 just seemed like a lot of points for me for a Raven team that I don't get excited about on any given Sunday. So I'm going to take the Vikings. That's not a hard pick, like Dave's pick last week when he took the Vikings. And sorry, I had to do it. But the Vikings, they fool you when they're bad. They fool you the next week when they're good. They're the most heckle and jekyll team in the league. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take the Vikings in the 5.5.
All very, really, really valid points. I think, Daniel Hunter is out on the defensive line.
For the year, by the way. Did I not send you a text on Sunday? You said, Hunter's going to be gone for the year.
Yeah. And I just, to me, this is Lamar Jackson running all over the Vikings. And I agree with you. Like every game so far this season for this Minnesota team has been close. Wouldn't surprise me to see, somebody win by just 3 points in this game, hence making the argument that I should do what Brad's doing. It's just that I think like what happens with some of these teams is they hit a point in the season where it's not like they all get together and say, well, we're suddenly bad and we're not going anywhere, but it has its impact. Like the coaching staff losing its players has its impact. I feel like that's what's about to happen with this Viking team. They're about to go all Dan Campbell on their coach. They could potentially. This is the game that could get Zimmer fired. Like if they lose 40-10. Hollywood Brown's going to run all over that Viking secondary. So, I'm sticking with my Ravens pick in this one.
Hey, I agree with you, but we keep saying it. How many years have we been saying this could be the one that ends Zimmer? The guy just keeps hanging around, and he's like the ultimate Teflon man. You just can't. Nothing sticks to him. So
unless he wins 2 playoff games, it's over. This is it for him. This is the year.
Well, I picked, I think, one of the more confusing games of the week, and that's the Falcons at the Saints. The Saints, I don't know, what's his name? Taysom Hill is now the quarterback, I think, or who is it? Is it going to be the guy that was in Denver?
I need to just send you a picture of Trevor Siemian in his Bronco uniform, so you remember who he is.
Yeah, I mean, it's either Trevor Siemian or it's Taysom whatever
Hill. Neither
one of them are any good as far as quarterbacks go, but Taysom Hill can run, and I'm just wondering now, Mike, their wide receivers now out for the season as well, Michael Thomas, and so I'm wondering where the offense is going to come from, and I'm expecting that New Orleans is going to line up in the wing T and just run Kamara and Mark Ingram and Taysom Hill and see if the Falcons can stop it, because I don't know what else you do if you're the Saints. The good thing for New Orleans, though, is they have a great defense, and they're going against one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, in my mind, in Matt Ryan. And so I see a really low-scoring affair here with the Saints winning this thing. They're a 6-point favorite. I think the Falcons are going to have a day of frustration on offense, because I think the New Orleans defense is now going to step up. Sean Payton, one of the best coaches in the league. Do never count out the Saints. They'll figure something out. The Saints are -6, and I'm going to take New Orleans.
Yeah, not too much flip-flopping here. Always been a fan of Matt Ryan. Always thought he was a guy that I always liked him throwing the ball down the field. These quarterbacks kill me, they with the dink and dunk passes and stuff like that. And to be honest, if you go back and you look at 10 years of Tom Brady's career in New England, that was a big part of their strategy for a long time. So I like the fact that Matt Ryan's the guy that's going to take a shot downfield, but I just he's heading towards the end of his career. The Saints team's on a bit of a roll. They're just coming off of a big win, and yes, they lost their starting quarterback, but it was always going to be close between Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. Anyways, I'm with you. Sean Payton's too good of a coach to lose this game, and he's too good of a coach to not win by at least 6. I'm going with the Saints as well.
Yeah, it's an intriguing game, though. Really, I mean, is Calvin Ridley going to play in that game, or is he still dinged up? And if that happens, who are the Falcons going to get the ball to? I mean, are they going to draw double coverage on their tight end? Was it going to be Russell Gage maybe that becomes the big option in that offense? I just don't see a lot there. They don't have much of a running game, and the Saint defense is really, really good. So
I heard Ridley was done. Was not happening. Wasn't going to be there this week. So, had to double check that one. All right, Brad. I'll do the worst game of the year at the end. The very worst possible game you could possibly pick coming up at the end. My second to last pick of this week is a game that shouldn't in any way be intriguing as far as I'm concerned. The Chicago Bears at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin has weathered the ship. I called it last week with the Browns. I'm going to call it again against the Bears this week, to take the Steelers at home against Justin Fields and the Bears. It's 6.5. It's Mike Tomlin's defense against Justin Fields. That's how I love. Forget about Ben Roethlisberger for a second, because I know you're working on your he can't throw the ball past 20 yards jokes. Like he has no arm strength and their offensive line's terrible. Blah 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 blah. Well, Najee Harris is a dual threat. He can catch and he can run even with a bad offensive line. To me, this was the easiest game to pick of the week for anybody. To go with the Bears in this one, it just baffles me. Just baffles.
Well, baffle away. I don't think Pittsburgh's 6.5 point favorite of the Chicago Bears. I just don't, and I think the Steelers are a very mediocre football team. I do believe they have some talent, but their offensive line is very poor, and the Bears can get after it at times on defense. And so I think Pittsburgh wins the game. I just think 6.5 is a lot of points to give up to a Chicago Bears team that desperately needs to look good. I don't really feel comfortable with this line. I ordinarily probably wouldn't bet this game, but you picked it, so now I got to do it. And I'm going to take the Bears. It's just a hunch. I feel like the Bears are ready to go on the road and look solid. Justin Fields showed some signs of a little bit of growth last week, made one of the more spectacular runs I've seen in a long, long time. So I think he goes into Pittsburgh with a little bit of confidence. Now, who he's going to throw it to, who's going to run the ball, I have no idea. But I think the Bears' defense is good enough to keep it close. And so that's why I'm hesitant to give 6.5 and take the Steelers. I'm going to take the Bears.
Yeah. As I mentioned, it just baffles me because I think this Bears defense isn't that good. I wonder when Mike Zimmer does get let go by the Vikings, will he be on the Chicago Bears short list as a new head coach? Because, both of those positions are definitely, the Bear, Matt Nagy has no chance of surviving. The expectations on Matt Nagy, coming into this season were way too high. He's not going to be able to get them back to 500 with what they have on the field. They spent all of this money on linebackers on that team. Is absolutely crazy how much money they have tied. They have more money tied into linebackers than the Vikings do into their entire defense. Basically, it's crazy. So Matt Nagy, most likely gone. That was those stories were, and I feel bad for him because he's a decent coach. I think he does. If your plan is to go 500, Matt Nagy's your guy. If that's what you're looking for. How many teams in the National Football League, when they're rebuilding, would you be so happy with just that? And this Bears organization has done everything they've gone out of their way to discredit him. And so he's going to have a bad season and he'll be gone. Mike Zimmer interview, and I'm telling you.
All right, Dave. Well, when was the last time we got to week 9 and the Browns and the Bengals was interesting? I mean, it's been a long time. We probably have to go back to like the Kenny Anderson days with the Kenny Anderson versus Mike Phipps or something. Or was Mike Phipps with the Bears or was he with the Bengals? I don't know.
I don't know. But you're right. I mean, like normally they'd be talking draft position at this point.
Yeah, Bernie Kosar might have still been playing the last time this game was interesting. But suddenly this is an interesting game. And I know you were really high on the Browns, at the beginning of the year. And obviously they've had a lot of injuries that have hurt them. And the Bengals have suddenly looked great. And then all of a sudden, unbelievably fell on their face last week against the Jets, which I couldn't believe it. I was watching. But But I do believe the Bengals right now are the healthier team. And I think the Browns are a little bit dinged up. There's a lot of problems in Cleveland right now. You mentioned that Odell Beckham Jr. thing is just kind of weird.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on with Baker Mayfield's shoulder. They look like they're starting to get healthier at running back now, so they look fine there. They got a great offensive line, obviously. But I think that Dave's going to be sending me another text this weekend that says, "Are the Bengals that good?" Because I have the sense the Bengals are going to go. They're going to win. They're at home, and they're 2.5-point favorites. I would have never guessed that at the beginning of the year. But I think it just goes to show you that the people in Vegas really like the talent on this Cincinnati team. The defense is much better than people thought. And Cleveland's kind of limping in. So I'm going to take the Bengals, and I'm going to give the 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, the real issue here, so, Odell Beckham Jr. is probably going to be gone. And, I look at that, and I'm like, that has no impact at all. I mean, that's the kind of impact he has not had on this Cleveland Browns team since getting there. And, the video posting by OBJ's dad pointing out all the passes that Baker Mayfield misses or doesn't throw to OBJ. It's hard to be a National Football League quarterback. It's harder to be a National Football League quarterback with a ton of expectations on top of you. It's even harder to be a National League football quarterback with a ton of expectations on top of you, a huge ego that Baker Mayfield has, and an arm that doesn't support any of what I just said. And that is the issue here. It's not that Baker is going out of his way to not throw the ball to OBJ. It's just that he can't throw the ball to OBJ. The routes that Landry runs are the kinds of routes that Baker's good at throwing. Throwing the ball downfield is not where Baker Mayfield is really going to make his money. I've said it before about Kevin Stefanski and using Baker Mayfield as sort of like a puppet quarterback, somebody that he can have sort of complete control over. And we saw how good sort of Case Keenum looked, and they're basically the same guy. And so I don't want to talk about, whether or not Baker is going to be the quarterback of the future for the Browns or not. I just look at this and there's so much talent on defense. I know the Browns are banged up in the secondary. I do not believe in I believe in Joe Burrow. I just don't believe in the rest of this Bengals team yet. Specifically on the defense, I am going to go with the Browns on the road against the Bengals. This shouldn't have even been a game to be concerned about when you just look at all the talent on this Browns team.
I think it's a tempo game. Whoever sets the tempo of the game, I think wins it. I think the Bengals, if they get out front, the Browns are they're not really designed to come from behind. And so that's what concerns me about teams that just run the football. If they get behind by a couple scores, it's all she wrote. They just, you got to be patient. The running game is something that has to develop over time. You can't just call upon it in the fourth quarter when you're down by 14 points. And so I think Cincinnati's offense, I think Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow is a spectacular young combination that we're going to be hearing about for a long, long time. And I don't think we're going to be hearing about the Cleveland Browns running game for that long. And so I think we're watching history progress right in front of us. I think the Bengals have got some young stars on that team. I think they're the best young team in that division. You heard it here, Dave. They're the best young team in that division. And I think they win at home. I think this is just another stepping stone in the progression of Burrow, Chase, and the rest of that team moving forward. They win, and they kind of control their own destiny at this point.
I agree. They're the best young team in that division that wears leopard skin uniforms. As far
Well,
as
it was an easy comment because everybody else in that division is old, right?
Is old, yeah. It was super easy. Yeah. So, all right, Brad, I teased it a little bit. Last game, I don't even think there's too much to discuss here. The 1-7 Houston Texans fly into Miami to do battle with the 1-7 Miami Dolphins. How bad do the Texans have to be to go on the road against another team that's equally as bad as them and be giving up 6.5 points in the game? The Dolphins are favored by 6.5. How bad does this Texans team have to be at this point? Look, it's a fire sale. They're moving players in and out. You know, they obviously weren't able to figure out a landing spot yet for Deshaun. But they still did make a lot of other roster moves as well. They're playing for the future already. Miami, a lot of those players are playing for their futures, as is the coaching staff there. I've got to believe this is a big win for Tua and the Dolphins. I'll give up the 6.5. It has to be the first time in the history of the National Football League where a 1-7 team is favored by 6.5 in a game. Only thing would be more interesting is if the Dolphins were on the road favored by 6.5.
Well, yeah, I mean, you hit on a key point there. It might be the first time that a 1-7 team's ever been a 6.5 point favorite, which is exactly the reason I'm going to take the 6.5 points. Because how are the Dolphins 1-7? I mean, they're not a good football team, and offensively they're a mess, and defensively they just haven't played very well. And so, Houston's not a good football team either. But you know, when you're 1-7, you're 1-7 for a reason. You're doing a lot of things wrong, and I just like the points. I don't think much of either of these teams. I can't believe you chose this game. But it's a sign of desperation to me that you're trying to get back into this deal when you start taking the Texans and the Dolphins. So I'm gonna give you an opportunity, Dave. I'm gonna take the Texans and just say by chance that Houston with 6.5 comes out. Now the Dolphins, I think, are going to win the game. I think they're a better football team, but they're 1-7, Dave. They shouldn't be giving 6.5 away. I don't care who it is. Texans or, the Jaguars, whoever it is, they haven't proven to me as a 1-7 team that they're a whole lot better than anybody in the league. And so I'm going to take those 6.5. Yeah.
I mean, second time today, you've made a lot of valid points and I still picked against your valid points. Like the Dolphins are they don't think they're a 1-7 team. They think they're way better than that. Then
they're badly mistaken.
They are at this point, way better than the Texans are, and it just this should be a blowout victory, by 10 points or more for this Dolphin team. I really think they're going to take care of business. Look, Brian Flores, he needs to get this team back on track. They have to start believing again. Winning by 3 is not going to do it. This needs to be, pile it on when you can. I think that's what we're going to see, which is why I took this game instead of the Chiefs-Packer game, which would have been a whole interesting thing on its own. All right, Mr. Hoysef, we made it through our top 10 games worth spending some money on for week 9 of your National Football League season. What kind of parting thoughts do you have that will baffle North America?
Why didn't you take the Chiefs against the Packers? That's an interesting game.
Well, now it's really
win that thing. I mean, now you got Green, but who's going to play quarterback? Is Bryce Love? What's his name?
Jordan
Love, the guy they drafted.
Jordan
is he going to play?
Yeah, Jordan Love's starting.
Jordan Love. Hey, that's intriguing to me. I mean, first of all, you got your superstar quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, who tried to publicly embarrass you during the offseason by saying he was going to hold out and he wasn't going to play. And so therefore, we haven't seen anything of Jordan Love at all. He hasn't played really a meaningful down of football in a year and a half. And so now you got a situation where Rodgers has COVID, lied about his COVID test, and all of a sudden you got Jordan Love playing a Chiefs team that's not very good. I think it's intriguing. If the Packers go on and win that game and Love looks good, then I think Rodgers has made a huge fool out of himself.
Do you think Tom Brady texted Aaron Rodgers when he found out he had COVID? I mean, just because they played in that match game against each other, the golf match game in Wyoming during the summer. The TNT show, which is fantastic television. Everybody for that was supposed to be COVID tested. And here's Tom Brady, coming off of did Aaron Rodgers get an angry text from Tom Brady? That's really what I want to know. That's really what I want to know.
What's going to happen? I mean, after this last week, I'm just, I'm baffled. I mean, what's going to happen in this week? I mean, how do you have an encore for that week? That was some kind of week in the NFL, and I hope things calm down a little bit because there's a lot of teams whose optimism is a lot different than it was a week ago, namely the Raiders, the Saints, the Packers now with Rodgers, although it's only a 1 week deal, the Vikings. I mean, how about the Jets? We didn't even talk about the Jets won. They were impressive. They beat the Bengals. I mean, who knows in this league? You just never know.
You really don't. And, Mike White, the Jets had no reason to go out and get Joe Flacco after seeing
Who is
Mike
he?
White
The kid looked great.
Yeah. And he was and he didn't seem like the lights were too big for him, which is, a lot of these young kids, and I get it. It's scary, being in the National Football League, and the speed of the game is so much faster, even.
I know, because I only played in the NFL for 7 seasons,
It's so much faster, especially as I've gotten older, Brad, I've gotten better seats. And so you can sort of see the game now. You and I have both had press passes occasionally as well. But that being said, the game has really gotten a lot faster, and it's hard for young quarterbacks to deal with that. So I was happy for Mike White, and that was great watching Joe Flacco sitting on the sidelines, having recently been re-signed by the Jets, seeing this kid just blow it up. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Hey, also, didn't the Cardinals get beat last week?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the down went the Cardinals when the Green Bay Packers had who as their starting quarterback. Look, Aaron Rodgers. Once again, my biggest concern is that he just lied about it. And then the second concern is, if you're serious in this world in today about making it to the Super Bowl, regardless of your personal beliefs on being vaccinated or not being vaccinated, it's going to be very difficult to navigate the world, even as it is, and sort of provide some level of assurance to the team that you're with as you travel around the country that you're not going to come down with it. It's one of those things. I wonder if he'll get vaccinated now or he'll remain unvaccinated going forward.
And one other thing, it's just a glaring, unbelievable thing that I noticed here, that I can't believe that you didn't bet the Patriots-Panthers game. You're such a big Belichick guy, and you hate Sam Darnold so much. I can't believe that one escaped you.
I left it for you. And I thought for sure Brad's going to we're gonna play with this. Actually, I said this last week that I was sort of out of the Bill Belichick business for a while.
I think I sent you a text over the weekend and said you got to wake up real early to beat Bill Belichick.
Yeah, and it was just a really strong coaching performance by the New England Patriots last week for sure. All right. Want to thank everybody for joining us on the Gods of Odds. For Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California, I'm Dave DeBopp in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
God here, and thanks for tuning in to the Gods of Odds. For more semi-witty sports commentary, please make sure you check out mighty.rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.